So I went and did a little research and started looking at things, and you know, you look at Satanism and how they walk backwards and do everything backwards type of stuff, and I'm going, okay, well, you'll listen to some things that the Bible says also, and they'll say that God created the world, but the devil's in control of it, and it's like, kind of like, what does that mean? Right? What does that mean? And I started looking around, and they say that a lot of the music that's out there that we listen to is demonic by nature. It's got some sort of like manipulation control. It's supposed to affect your emotions. It's supposed to, hijack your thought processes. Some of it does do that. I can guarantee you that some of it does, and a lot of people are unaware of it. And then everyone has heard these urban legends about how some songs, when they're played backwards, actually speak English backwards in sentences. And then I started realizing that a lot of what the English language is, its origin of language is from ancient Latin. And as time goes on in English, new words are created. You've got slang terms and things like that kind of organically are created through time as society progresses. Either there's Old English before there was the English that we speak today. And Old English is like Shakespearean poems and things like that, Shakespearean plays. And so you can kind of see the progression of the English language from Latin into Old English, and also it's separated into a lot of Western culture languages. Latin is the genesis of like French and German and Italian and English and Portuguese and Spanish, and so it permeates half of the world. And I started looking at some of the words in the English language and realized that if you flip the word, you spell the word backwards and translate it into Latin, it's a word in Latin. It's a significant word in Latin. Kind of like the word mana. Everybody knows what mana is that plays video games. You got your hit points, and then you've got your magic points or whatever, or mana is what they call it a lot of the time. You flip that backwards, a nam, it means soul or spirit. I started doing that with other words. As a matter of fact, the word you flip backwards is drow, D-R-O-W, and that's like an ancient lore of a creature who is basically the dark version of the elf. And elves are typically known as being long-living, very wise, very peaceful, very understanding, kind of like the embodiment of everything that you would want in a human being, all the good qualities. And so a drow is kind of like an evil elf. And so it's the opposite of the embodiment of what an elf is supposed to be in what you would call mythological lore or the imagination of the human being. And none of this is really what you would call a coincidence when English made songs are played backwards and it speaks a language. What's going on is that the English language is very much so written backwards from Latin in a lot of different ways. So yeah, when I tell you that we've been walking backwards since the beginning, if English was our first language, it's no joke. It pretty much has come to my conclusion that they say that the devil is in control of this world. Yeah, kind of is if you look at the way that we speak English. We don't realize we're speaking backwards. We don't realize that what we're doing is backwards, and we're trapped in a framework that's meant to control, manipulate us, abuse us in just about every way possible. Like, here's an example, okay? We speak English, but they say Latin's a dead language. I'm sure there's a lot of people who have said that I've heard people say that Latin's a dead language, and I've discussed this before. The three industries of most people who feel fearful and helpless when they are trapped inside of the framework of those three industries in society is the legal system, it's the psychology system, and it's the medical system. So all of those cost too much fucking money for people to heal themselves. They don't really fully heal you or rectify the situation. Like, the legal system just runs you through the mill. You end up in jail. You end up more fucked up in jail after you get out than when you had gotten in. Most of the time, most of the people who end up in jail end up more fucked up than when they entered. And then they get medicated, they get therapy, and they get taxed to death in court fees and court fines. It's kind of like the student loans that they did, where people cannot file Chapter 7 or Chapter 11 bankruptcy in the United States. That's like $1 trillion, part of the national deficit that people have to continue to pay into as far as their APR goes, and they cannot file bankruptcy to remove that debt. So they're trapped in this debt permanently, and that goes right towards what you would call the national debt's APR. And so a lot of people are trapped in that. The government approved their loan on jobs that they knew wouldn't pay. So it was basically what you would call a subliminal way to give people what they thought was their dream and trap them in permanent indentured servitude under an APR debt. And so that's the whole song, 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. And that's had to do with work camps back in the day of, like indentured servitude and slavery, and that people would work really hard for pennies on the dollar for someone else, and they had like a company store there where everything was overpriced, but they were too far away from anywhere to go travel, working too hard to travel anywhere to the nearest place where they could actually get supplies. So they had to pay too much for the products at the company store, and all it did was put them more in debt for no matter how much they worked. And that's what used to happen in these work camps back in the days where there was indentured servitude and slavery. The original 13 colonies, it wasn't just slaves who were enslaved. It was anybody who got into debt and couldn't pay it off. They became indentured servants. And so slavery, it didn't matter what color you were, what race you were. If you got in debt, they would fucking treat you like a slave. Same fucking thing. You'd be getting your ass whipped if you didn't fucking work. So it's really all bullshit when it comes down to it. This country was born on a demonic contract. That's why we got the 10 Amendments instead of the 10 Commandments. The original 13 colonies, 13 families, the 13 cursed families of the Illuminati. There's sigils built into the cities of the original 13 colonies. This country was born in blood, killing the Native American indigenous people here as if they were the bad people. And then buffalo soldiers were brought over. The black people were used to attack the Indians, and then the white people got blamed for that, even though in 1775 in Boston, that's when the Marines were born in a bar. That would be your Irish that made that happen. 1776 was the Declaration of Independence, and in 1777, the first black Masonic temple opened up in Boston. So it's kind of weird because you think about the original 13 colonies, and you had the South and you had the North, and the South really did not like black people. They enslaved them. This is what we were told in history. But then you look up in the North, and there is a black Masonic temple that opened up in 1777. Now, news didn't travel very fast back then, but you could get on horseback, and in 1 month you probably go from Florida or Virginia or whatever all the way up to New York City, no problem. So news didn't travel very fast back then. But yeah, on Pony Express, they used to call it, Pony Express by mail, because they used to do it on horseback back in the day. That was the quickest way to get mail back and forth. You could probably get halfway across the country, north to south. You could get, through the 13 colonies in a month. And so I find this odd that they had the South, who was staunchly racist, and then of course, the South and the North had spies. And so I find it odd that there is a Masonic temple in the North and the South didn't do anything about it. It's like a piece of history that fucking disappeared during the 13 colonies. You had the South who was fighting the North, and for some reason, there's no communication back and forth between the North and the South that there is a black Masonic temple up there. But yeah, I find it a little bit weird that the Marines were born in 1775, and then 1776, the Declaration of Independence occurred, and then 1777 was the first black Masonic tribe. And Boston is where the Marines were born. Boston is where that first black tribe, as far as your Masonic temple, was opened in the USA. It was the first temple that was opened in the USA, and still to this day, the Irish and the African people that came across the ocean, both of those tribes still fucking work in tandem to this day. And so it's kind of what you would call a smoking gun, where you've got two different families working together in tandem, doing all kinds of weird shit behind the scenes. I'm not saying all of the people of these ethnicities are this way. I'm saying that they work in tandem. You can see it. You can see how it works. So here's another example, okay? You got, right after World War II, there's a government agency that was born and a biker group that was born. I'm not going to say which ones, but they were born within the same year. Okay, it's a little fucking odd that all of a sudden you've got an intelligence agency that was born right after World War II, and all of a sudden a biker gang was born right about the same time. Not a fucking coincidence. So you start looking at all this crap that's going on, and you're going, oh, because it's like, you start looking at the information, the knowledge you have, and you're like, you start basically building your case of what you see, and it becomes fucking undeniable because of pattern and the way that things are behaving. They work tandem. You can kind of see how everything fucking organizes itself under the weight of its own chronological order and information, as well as the collaboration of groups. So yeah, you can see in the way that, the urban legend about music, how if you flip it backwards and you run the CD backwards, it says weird stuff and weird creepy stuff. That's because you flip the words around in English and look at it in Latin, and that's what you got. So here's an example too, okay? Back in the day, Pythagoras, I think everybody knows who Pythagoras was, Pythagorean theorem and things like that. They had secret meetings, okay? They'd come at night in togas, and the way to enter is they had a pentagram on their hand, but it was right side up. It had a single point right side up. And you'll look at Satanism today, that is flipped upside down. Now, back in the day with Pythagoras' inner circle, they talked about mathematics, they talked about science, astrology, astronomy, basically all of the fine sciences that we see today. And that's what it was about. It was about discussing the world around us and understanding it better and developing formulations that helped us understand what we see with our five senses. Now, you can say that Satanism took that very symbol that they used to put on their hands as a form of what you would call verification in order to enter these private meetings, because that's what it was. It was a pentagram, but it was the single point pointed upward. They turned it into something unholy and demonic by flipping it upside down. So you've got like the two horns sitting up of the star inside the circle, which is the pentagram. It's supposed to embody the goat, or the demonic form of what the embodiment of what they consider Satan to be, which is kind of like a goat man with horns. And so you can see how originally it was Pythagoras' like secret symbolism on your hand. It was basically your signature to get into their private meetings. And Satanism basically flipped that upside down and bastardized it and turned it into a demonic form. And a lot of people don't know that. It's kind of like Hitler and a lot of his generals wore the Iron Cross around their neck. The Iron Cross was originally the Knights Templar far before Hitler was ever born, or manufactured, I would say. I'm assuming that person was manufactured as part of our historical bullshit. And so you also look at the symbolism of the swastika, which was originally a Catholic symbol. So, he took the Iron Cross, which is the Knights Templar. They're Catholic, of what you would call Christian or Catholic descent. And then you also look at the swastika, Catholic symbolism. All of that, the stuff he wore around his neck and the swastika is all Catholic symbolism. And no one even talks about that. What the fuck? Right? What the fuck is going on? Does anyone want to explain what's up with all these weird bait and switches that I keep seeing? You've got this shell game in the bait and switch, and you can see this weird shit too. Here's another example. In Texas, there is a redheaded teenager, most likely Irish, who was allegedly the leader of a Mexican mafia gang. And I can tell you that's bullshit, because I have never heard of a bunch of Mexican hoods being led around by like some pasty-skinned ginger kid. That is just too fucking insane, and it doesn't make any sense either. Because think about how inadequately understanding of any type of thing that a gang or a mafia would do, that a ginger teenager would be adequately prepared to do, looking at a Mexican mafia. It would be like saying some white guy is running the Crips or the Bloods, or some white guys running the Mexican mafia. Like, yeah, that doesn't fucking work. That's not gonna function. Probably think a bunch of Mexican mafia guys are gonna fucking follow directions from a white guy or a fucking or somebody, some other ethnicity. Most of these gangs are all basically inner circle within some type of bloodline. The Mexican mafia, they're mostly all Mexicans. The ones that are probably in what you would call leadership positions, they're gonna be Mexican or of Latino descent. Same with like some biker gangs out there. They're all Aryan. They're all white for the most part. There might be some like interspersed bloodlines in there that aren't technically white, but whatever. Typically, it's all like the Aryan bloodline. It'd be like a black guy joining the KKK. This is all bait and switch bullshit when you look at it, because under the circumstances of like a ginger guy being allegedly busted for running a Mexican mafia gang in Texas, is like, yeah, I call bullshit on that. It's kind of like Muammar Gaddafi went to the United States or the United Nations saying, why the fuck did Saddam Hussein get killed when he was good buddies with Donald Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney? Yeah, so it's all basically a big bait and switch. These motherfuckers have been running around just like destroying each other, looking for the next victim to fuck up. And it's like, oh, look, we'll just take this person from this family, throw him into another one, which is like, what they tried to do with me. And they did this to Tupac, too. They fucking sacrificed him. That's why he had the number 2 in his name. Anyways, they tried to isolate me down to the finest detail, drive me crazy, crash my car, tried to kill my dog. He passed on recently, so I'm a little bit fucking bent out of shape right now. They crashed my car, killed my dog, tried to destroy my business, ran around here, made a bunch of noise, pestered me. Everything from fucking turning the faucet on to my house, to my kitchen sink. When I wasn't home, me and my brother left the house empty, and we came home and the kitchen sink's on. It's like, yeah, we always make sure that everything's shut off, just to make sure that nothing bad happens. So when you come home and your kitchen sink's on, this is all asshole gang stalking shit that narcissists use to try to drive a target crazy. These motherfuckers have done this so many times in the past that they can't get away with it anymore. Especially when they ran into a motherfucker like me. A really nice, kind motherfucker that they had no business fucking with. But yeah, they did the same shit to Tupac. He even said it. He said his family betrayed him, and then he got fucking shot and murdered. And so, yeah, they tried to crash. They set up a car accident. It's kind of funny because the guy's last name that I crashed into, his name was Redstone. And guess what? My fucking LLC that I opened up was Red Diamond Consulting LLC. It's like, yeah, okay. So some guy fucking sets up a rear end car accident, hits on the brakes as hard as he can when I'm going down an on-ramp onto the freeway. Like, yeah, that was a fucking setup. The guy's got the same last name as my fucking company. Yeah, give me a fucking break. So it's like one setup after another, from crashing my car to trying to kill my dog at the vet center that I was at, to fucking running around here making a bunch of noise, blowing train horns on semis going by at 3 or 4 in the fucking morning, turning on the water faucet in my living room, stealing stuff out of my house that's random shit. It's like stealing 4-foot long pieces of angle iron when they could have stolen something worth hundreds of dollars sitting right next to it, and it would have been easier to carry out this little private, like, brand new briefcase or something, and instead they took like angle iron. Because they knew that I needed that for my sawmill, to extend out my sawmill to do something with the wood that I was cutting. And so, yeah, these motherfuckers have been monitoring me, trying to control every little aspect to allowing me to move forward in my life, to be successful in doing something else. They tried to fuck up my business as well. So they tried to do everything possible to try to get me to act out, get me to do something stupid, to drive me crazy. And they're pushing fucking better health therapy commercials constantly through my social media. I'm like, yeah, fuck you, I don't need therapy. You guys already know that therapy is broken because the psychology department doesn't know how to fix a lot of medical conditions without just medicating them into the ground. So yeah, psychology is bullshit, law is bullshit, the medical industry is bullshit. They just want you to get sick. They want to run you through the fucking legal system, and they want to medicate you and then pat you on the back with, your weekly therapy session saying everything's going to be all right. Get back in and do your 9-to-5 job. That's what they do. And all that's written in Latin. All of those industries have a dictionary all on their own, so you can't understand. It's written in Latin, by the way. All those fucking all those All those industries are written in Latin. The dictionaries are written in Latin, so you don't understand. Because it's a dead language, right? It's a dead language. You're not supposed to understand it, so they can charge you too much and make you feel vulnerable and helpless in those circumstances. So you sit there basically with your dick in your hand going, please help me. Please don't make me pay too much for you fucking me over because I don't understand Latin and I can't read the dictionary that you read by. Yeah, it's a big fuck job. It's a big fuck job. That's why when you get married, costs way too much money, and then there's the honeymoon, which is the love bombing, right? You two ride each other for like a week straight, have the greatest time, and it's all downhill from there, and it turns into a discard, which is the divorce, and then you get divorced, and all of a sudden, everything's fucked up in your life, but the government loves it because they tax you on the way in, and they tax you on the way out. And they expect you to rinse and repeat again and just go through the same fucking abuse cycle all over again. Everything from the moment that you're born, which obviously having a birth in the hospital costs a shitload of money now, of course. So they screw you when you have a kid too. So first you fuck, and then the government fucks you when you have the kid. Isn't that cute? They charge you way too much for babies in the hospital now too. So the way that they built the system is basically meant to fuck you in every possible way from the moment that you're born to the moment you die. Matter of fact, let's talk about funerals. How much does a fucking casket cost? What, $5,000 minimum? A cheap casket is like $5,000? You'd be lucky to put someone in the ground nowadays for 10 or 20 grand, which is fucking bullshit. So yeah, from the moment you're born, costs too much to have a birth in a hospital, to the moment you die, costs too much for a fucking casket in a funeral home. From the moment you're born to the moment you die, you're meant to just be farmed and fucked up. And that's why the United States is a demonic corporation, and you are considered an asset or an object. You know, narcissists like to take people and treat them like a fucking toaster or an appliance and plug them in and use them for as an object. Like, why doesn't the toaster work? Why isn't the toaster toasting my fucking toast correctly? And they just throw it away and get another one. That's how narcissists treat people. And you can see how this country, the United States, is being treated exactly the same way as far as the people of this country goes. I'm not tolerating this shit anymore. I'm not allowing a bunch of fucking narcissists to sit here, run around, and treat people like objects just so they can farm people for their life of luxury and whatever the fuck. This whole system is broken. They've been lying to us. We've been walking backwards since the beginning. The English language is written backwards, so everything that we need to know to free ourselves from the tyranny of this satanic fucking cult that is the United States is written backwards. And so when we speak out in English, that's why we hear things backwards. When you reverse what we say and hear what we have to say in English, and it comes out in English backwards, yeah, it's because the Latin language has been integrated into our language, both forwards and backwards. So that's pretty much my conclusion of what I've come to. It makes sense why people can't get healthy in this country, because the food is poisoned. It makes sense that our families are being broken up. I mean, look at the crap that they've done with the children's cartoons. The last 65 years, every children's cartoon that's got a family unit in it, the dad has been treated like a fucking idiot. It's the dumb dad trope. And that's to make it so everybody in the family thinks dad's stupid. And that way when the divorce occurs, mom gets the kids, dad gets ran into the ground, probably dies. That's why men have a higher suicide rate, is mostly because of divorce and the bullshit that men have to go through in society and the way that they're treated like a fucking object to be, to have more stuff thrown on the back of the fucking pack mule. And the government loves that because men are supposed to sit there quietly and take the abuse. The problem is that men are not what you would call capable of expressing their emotions very well. And so it's not that men are not emotionally intelligent. Men are not programmed from birth to be able to express themselves clearly and in a way that other people can understand. In other words, saying, my feelings are hurt because I was a scapegoat of a narcissistic family and treated like a punching bag for decades. Most men have a hard time saying that out loud, things like that. And so you get tired of the bullshit after a while because you're watching everyone else go through the same crap over and over again while the rich get richer and they continue to steal from the poor and pretend like they can't fucking afford lunch foods for the children at the schools that they supposedly want people to be educated enough to take care of themselves. It's all a fucking lie. They just want to beat you down, take advantage of you, starve your children while they steal money from your dad. Yeah, it's pretty much how they do it. So everything's bullshit. The way that they've built everything, around every corner is a scam. And the rich are basically a bunch of fascist pricks, and that's all they want to do is use you as an object to steal from you, steal your freedom, steal your value, and hand it over to the rich, which basically sit there, twiddle their thumbs, and come up with evil plans to fuck you over and steal from you. That's what they do. You look at it from, like I said, from birth to death. You're going to be charged too much for being born, and you're going to be charged too much for dying. And if you get married and you get divorced, they're going to get you on the way in and on the way out. I'm fucking tired of this bullshit.